We're gonna pop off the lower radiator hose. I already loosened it up. It's this guy right here. It's just a simple hose clamp. Unscrew it with a screwdriver, and then you'll be able to pull it off and get that coolant out. So what you can do, instead of draining all the coolant out like we did in this situation, you can take pliers like these and crimp off this top hose and that bottom radiator hose, and that'll pretty much stop all the coolant in the radiator from draining out, and you won't have as big of a mess like we do on the ground below this car. So next we're going to remove this Phillips head screw for the timing belt cover. Then there are a couple 10mm bolts on the front, and we're going to go ahead and remove those, and then we're going to move down to the fan, remove those nuts. So we were able to drop that fan off the front. It's 4 10mm nuts, and then you're just going to rest it up against the radiator. Be careful not to poke holes into your radiator. And once you do that, the front of that pulley, which is right here, is going to want to fall off. So even before you take this off, I'd recommend loosening your alternator with this guy right here. Loosen this nut, and then you're going to loosen this, and it will want to flop this way. So you're just going to push it, push those belts. You can leave them looped up around. You don't need to take off your AC belt over there, and then you'll be able to pull this pulley off. So after that, you should be able to pull your fan up and out, and then there should be 2 screws at the top of your fan shroud. These on this car were both broken. They're right here, but we were able to just move this hose over and it slid right up and out. Now we'll move on to taking the actual water pump all the way out. So first, I'm gonna go ahead and get this hose right here removed. Just a simple flathead screwdriver. These hoses are super old. Who knows how long they've been on here? So I'm trying to be a little careful with them, more than I would a newer car. But yeah, those are on there. Let's see if we can get. There we go. If we have to go buy a new hose, not the end of the world. This car probably needs it. We're also going to try to get as much coolant out of the end of this hose, so we're not spilling it all on this alternator. But if you spill a little bit on it, you'll be okay. Not too big of an issue. And like that, it's off. So next we'll move on to getting this water pump off. So first thing I like to do when you start pulling this water pump off is there's a water line right here that goes back and around the engine. It goes right here, right behind this little outlet, back, and it falls underneath the head. It's a little red line. There's a bolt up underneath here and a nut on the back side of the water pump, and you're going to want to make sure to get that off, because you will struggle for hours trying to get it off, and it will never come off if you don't take that bolt out. It holds the water line to it. There's a gasket in there that you should have with your new kit. So I just like to take a 10mm wrench and a 10mm socket. Put one on this side, one on this side, and it should be fairly loose. Just about out. That's what it is. So next we're going to take off all the 10mm nuts and bolts. There's one there. There's that line right there. This one that I was talking about earlier. You can kind of see it. That bolt and nut go underneath. There is a bolt over here, another nut over there, and I think one more underneath. So now we're gonna go ahead and get all these nuts off and bolts. I'm just gonna go ahead and take them off slowly and evenly, a little bit at a time. Just make sure they all even come off. So we were able to get all those bolts and nuts off, and it should, I messed with it a little bit, but it should come off and leak all over the ground. Of course, leak all over the ground. Go ahead, and it should, just like that, pop right off. And it looks like it's been done before because there's sealant and there's a gasket on the thing. And I just dropped something, I don't know where it went, but it's gone now. There it is. We're going to be replacing this whole pump, obviously, but there is a seal in here that goes to that water line right there. You can see it still on there. This seal, which we may have to get this to align properly, you sometimes have to push up on this once it's already installed, and that's why this guy is kind of slotted like that. Helps you get up on that, and then you can tighten this one down. You can see where the witness mark is, it's down low, meaning the last people push it up and then tighten it down. And then obviously the gasket on the back, but we have all that in our new kit. This pump was leaking pretty badly. Yeah, so good thing we're replacing it because her car did overheat. It was blowing smoke out of the engine. Didn't blow a head gasket, which we were very lucky for, but the temp gauge got right up there and there was smoke blown out of the whole inside of here. So let's get the new one on. So we have the old pump here, new pump. We're going to change all these studs over to this new one. For some reason it didn't come with it. It came with new bolts and hardware, but not new studs. Usually they come with new studs. But to do that, we're just going to do the double nut method. Screw one on, screw another one on to the stud, and then just use a wrench to pull it out. Hopefully they'll come out easy. This one was leaking a little bit from there, and a part of the gasket was leaking too. You can kind of see it up there, but someone stuffed that water hole. They stuffed it with RTV after, or with the rubber gasket that goes in there. But they're the same pump. This one just has a different kind of pump part to it, but they're the same. It'll work. So let's get in. Actually, we got to scrape all that old crusty gasket off of the block side. So for this last little bit with taking the gasket off of the actual block, I recommend using either Scotch-Brite or a plastic scraper. So I'm going to go ahead and get this gasket off. Hopefully it comes off easy. So I got the rest of that gasket cleaned off the engine block. I'm just gonna take some Scotch-Brite to it and get all those little tiny pieces that I couldn't get. You really want to make sure to get all of it off because they can cause leaks. And you don't want to do this whole thing over again. You're trying to do this and get it done, not try to have to deal with it again. I started today pretty late, but usually this should take you a day at the most. If it does take you longer, that's fine. Maybe you ran into some problems. But I'll be back in the morning and we'll finish this video up, finish this car up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. So it's day 2 of the Volvo job. We're just about to put the water pump on, so let's get it done. So now that we have the old pump out, we are gonna wanna change over these studs to the new pump. I've already removed one, but I'll show you how to remove this one. You'll take 2 of the nuts that came off of this old one. Thread it on down. You might need to spin it a little bit. Get the next one on. Then you want to take either 2 10mm wrenches or socket, doesn't matter, and just snug them up to each other. That should be good. Then we're going to take it, and there we go. Stud is coming out. So we have the stud out now. What you want to do, put it off, go like this, and break them. And this top one will come off. This bottom one might be stuck on, but you should be able to just hold it and turn it with your hand. It shouldn't be on there too tight. There we go. You just got to repeat this step for the other 3. If you'd like, clean these up in a little wheel, like a wire brush, something like that, to get all this old Loctite off it. And I'd recommend putting a little bit of medium strength thread locker onto them when you go to install afterwards in the new pump. Alright, so we are ready to install the new pump. First, we're going to get this seal off here, off that water pipe. Get the new one on. Make sure it's fully seated. There we go. And then we're just going to give this mating surface just one final wipe down. Coolant likes to drip out of this hole right here and kind of pile up right there. So just try to get it as dry as you can. Get all the dirt and grime off. There we go. So what we're gonna do now is just go ahead and hang this gasket up. There we go. It's on the studs. Then we're gonna take our water pump and we're just gonna slide it down in here, just so it's hanging. You can see, like I talked about earlier, how that one bolt is kind of oblong shaped. That's so it can move up and down and compress this top seal. We're also gonna make sure that this is in the back. There we go. And we're just gonna have that sit right there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up on the bottom of this, force it right up so this is squished. So this is the point I am at now. Lost the gloves because things got serious. When you first put the pump on, make sure you have all your gaskets, and then you just want to hang the pump by this stud and this stud down here. Then you're gonna thread those nuts on and tighten them up just so you have some wiggle room. Like even now I still have a little bit of wiggle room. You want to make sure this top gasket is fully back, not hanging hugely off the lip right here. And then what you're gonna slowly have to do, and it's a pain, it's a huge pain, you're gonna lift up on this pump and you're gonna move it all around till this really squishes down. You'll be able to start the other 3 bolts. This one and then 2 down here. Then you also have that water pump kind of clamping bolt and nut. But get it up, and then when you go to tighten everything down, make sure you really lift up on this to get this fully seated. You're not gonna know until the end if you have a leaky top gasket, but you really wanna make sure this is fully seated because you don't wanna rip all this apart again, you know? You wanna do this job one time. Make sure you fully seat it against the top. Pull up on it as you tighten these all down, and you should be good to go. All right, so we have the water pump fully on. I put the pulley on there and just put the belts up around. We're gonna put the rest of the belts on the alternator once we have the fan fully on and bolted down, so we're not playing with this. So let's start getting the fan on. We're gonna put it inside of the fan shroud, and then we're gonna slide it down as one piece, put the fan on, get all those nuts on, and then we should be good to go. Also, sorry about the frame rate and the flicker. I tried messing around with the settings a little bit. I got them a little bit better, but not perfect. So sorry about that. This is a new camera, I'm trying to figure it out. So what I had to do just now was I got everything on. I actually had this, I was installing it upside down, the fan shroud. So I got the fan shroud and the fan in as one piece, slipped it in. I actually had to end up taking this off. Didn't need to, didn't realize it. You can kind of just scoot it out of the way and it'll slip down. And then I had the pulley on. I pulled the pulley off, pulled the belts back off, and I was able to get this timing cover back on. It's not bolted down yet, it's just kind of sitting there, but that just allows you to have enough room once you have that pulley slipped off to get this back on, slip that pulley back on, slip the belts on, and then you'll put the fan on, tighten the fan down. All right, so we got the timing cover all tightened up. You have that one Phillips head right here. You have the second longest bolt of the 3 that go on in this hole. You have the shortest over here, and then the longest one goes down at the bottom. Those don't need to be super tight. Just hand snug, half turn once it tightens up. That's it. You should be good to go on that. Next, we're gonna move on to getting that fan clutch on and getting it all tightened down. All right, so we are nearing the end of the job here. I was able to get those belts tightened back down. This tensioner down here, I pretty much just put my ratchet on it and pulled this nut out as far as I could, loosened up the locking nut that's on it, and was able to fully push it up, get those belts up and around. I actually tightened the locking nut down till it was just about hand tight, and then I just used this little Milwaukee impact, put it to 1. You're not just banging on it, and just slowly back this screw back in, and it pulled tension on the belts. And then I locked the locking nut down completely, just hand tight, and then just a little extra turn. Nothing crazy. You don't want to snap any of these because you're gonna have to tear us all back out and be chasing these problems down, especially with the water pump. Big thing with IPD sending out wrong grade bolts with their water pump. So if you use those bolts, I probably wouldn't tighten them down to torque spec. I tried going to 16 on mine, and it felt like they were just getting to that point where they wanted to start to strip out or snap. So I didn't go any further, but they're definitely tight enough because you're pulling this whole thing back out and you're turning a one-day job into up to a week, you know. It just can go like that sometimes. But all we have left to do is installing this lower radiator hose, filling it back up, burping the system. Whenever you're burping the system, make sure you're squeezing your lines. Air pockets can form in there. Make sure the thermostat opens up. I open up the heat, make sure you have heat, make sure your temp gauge doesn't go crazy. But we'll get coolant in this reservoir right here, off camera, burp the whole thing out. Hopefully we have no leaks. So this is everything I ended up using. Socket set, pretty much, or I think everything was just a 10mm or a 12mm. Swivel head ratchet, a plastic scraper, 3-inch extension I think that's 3-inch. Just a little brush to get the crud off the bolts, 10mm wrench, razor blade for the gasket as well, Phillips head, and a flat head for the big hose clamps, and this one just for that little screw at the top of the timing cover. With these also, I used this guy, just a little magnetic tray to keep all my bolts in order, and M12 stubby. You don't need this, but it's really nice to have. It makes the job a lot quicker, and I honestly love this thing. I use it every single time I work on a car. So that's pretty much it. That's all you need. So that's gonna conclude doing the water pump on this Volvo 240 B230F. This should apply to 940s and other Volvos that do use B230F T or just F engines. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good luck with your projects. Don't snap any bolts. Please, if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, liking the video, comment if you have any questions. Tell me your favorite type of ice cream. But thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.